you didn't get this far to only get this far. You're absolutely a winner if you're listening to this, because this is a hard, shitty world sometimes. It's a great world. I love it, but it can be shitty. It can be hard for people, especially if you don't know how to get out of that negative feeling. And everybody has people that are treating them badly. You've all had struggles. But literally, if you got here, you got through all those struggles. You beat all those people who wanted to bring you down, and you won.
Join me on my mission to create a new tomorrow as I chat with industry experts, elite athletes, thought leaders, and government officials about how we activate our vision for a better world. We may agree and we may disagree, but I'm not backing down. I'm Ari Gronich, and this is Create a New Tomorrow podcast. Welcome back to another episode of Create a New Tomorrow. I am your host, Ari Gronich, and today I have with me Tracy Lamourie. Tracy is a PR expert who I'm going to not even read her her normal intro. I'm going to let her tell you about it. But this woman made her career by taking about 20 years or so of her life and setting free an innocent man who was on death row. So hey, I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about that story, and then we'll get into an awesome conversation that hopefully will help you create a new tomorrow for yourself, activate your vision for a better world, do something big in your life like Tracy has. So Tracy, let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi there. So yeah, I'm based in Canada. I'm a Canadian girl working usually internationally around the world when it's not in the middle of COVID. We're on the other side of that now, but still our borders are a little slow in opening up. So I've been here in my basement doing my magic. So I'm an international award-winning publicist working across borders and across industries. And for people who don't really know what that is basically getting people in the news, getting people, elevating their profile, whether they're entrepreneurs, executives, musicians, creatives, authors, all that fun stuff. But this just happened for me because of a natural kind of, I don't know if it's say natural, but it just happened. From what I started doing after 20 years, I ended up here. And so all the VIP parties and all the travel and all the super cool, amazing things that go with being a publicist weren't in my original plan. I was originally an activist in my 20s with my husband, Dave Parkinson. We've been married 26 years now. We've done all this together, starting with a little radio show in Toronto a long, long time ago, just college radio. And then when that was no more, was the early days of the internet. We still wanted to have a voice, to change the world, to, make things more equal, make, all those things that you're passionate about in your 20s, that I'm still passionate about today. And we found out just in a little corner of the early interwebs about a man named Jimmy Dennis who had paid for this little ad online. He was saying, hey, I'm on death row. I'm not looking for a pen pal. I'm not looking for a girlfriend, because a lot of those, prisoner
Right.
pen pal requests were like that. So I'm innocent and I need help. And so my husband and I, we were literally like, how innocent can this guy be? And people asked us, what made you actually write? We actually wrote a letter. We wrote to him and said, tell us more. And I think partly was because obviously we were activists, but also we had that radio show not long before. So we were still in that information gathering. And so we put pen to paper and we said, tell us about it. And we wrote a letter into death row. And he wrote back with the 28, when we were 28 years old, and he was 27. And he wrote back with a 28-page letter on both sides and all the legal documents that was in the cell, breaking down the whole case. Like there was no brochures or pamphlets or websites or anything. And we got this. And what do we do? People said, so, why did you do what you did? But again, why do we write that letter? We wrote the letter. And then once we did, here's this person who wrote back, 28 pages, who's clearly desperate and needs help. So what do you do with that?
Right.
You just say, oh, well, that was a fun read, so obviously we're like, oh, well, gee, what are we like? We have to do something about it. We had no money. I wasn't a publicist. We certainly weren't lawyers. But we thought, well, if we're this upset reading just this much, maybe we could put it on these interwebs, and somebody who has the ability, somebody who has money, maybe somebody will buy a lawyer, as we originally thought. So we started doing that. And ultimately we ended up being, we got disturbed by the death penalty in general in America through looking at that case.
Right.
And so there we were at 28 years old. This is how I learned to write a press release. I literally went to the Alta Vista, precursor to Google, and learned, for immediate release, how to write that. it was really hard to get attention for a case that was, someone was still convicted in America in those days. It was before Making a Murderer. It was before all the wrongful conviction serial and all those podcasts.
Right.
It was before all that. So we had the internet, we had the, email and everything, but it wasn't easy. So the way that we decided to address that, because it's like we were little mini publicists before we even knew what PR was, well, if we talk about the death penalty in general, as opposed to just this case, and use this case as an example, then maybe we'll get in more media. So we did that. We wrote up press releases for immediate release. And literally, there we were 28, 29 years old on CNN. And again, we had no legal experience, no PR experience, not very much media experience. And there we were on CNN, on MSNBC, on Court TV, on panels with lawyers, being interviewed by Catherine Cryer, by Nancy Grace, by like, oh my God. So, but it took another 11 or 12 years. That was just, not for profit, volunteer. By the way, Jimmy Dennis was freed in 2017. We talk almost every day, and there's some amazing things going on with him. He's an R&B artist now. So that's something your listeners should check that out, because it's a whole other story. But, in terms of, it took another 11 years before I thought, hey, hold on a second, because I was just in telesales. I could probably, not have a life I hate. I could probably not just sit here doing sales for the rest of my life. The skills that I've built dealing with media are actually valuable skills, duh. And then that's when I thought I could transition it and, help people who don't understand how to get into media, get into media. And that's when I was 41, 10 years ago, it became a business.
Nice. So I'm going to unpack this a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I know.
Okay, I'm going to unpack for you a little bit. So first of all, I love the story because it reminds me of one of my favorite stories, which is the story of Hurricane Carter. And I don't know what it is about you Canadians coming down here thinking you're going to save, all the American people, but
isn't that weird?
I do. I mean, I appreciate the thought, it's funny to me that
Canadians, apparently we do it.
Exactly. But here's the question. What is it that Canada breeds into the people that makes them say, go read say a book of Hurricane Carter's, or a little post on a little website on a brand new thing called the interwebs with bulletin board services? I mean, it wasn't like you had Google, it was bulletin boards and things. I mean, what is it that makes you do that? And that's anybody. I'm joking about the Canada American.
Well, I think what I always say to that, because you can't tell this story, I know, without it sounding heroic and epic and all that stuff, right? And so I always dial that back, because I'm not heroic or epic more than anybody else is. And this is where I say that, like, even though I did that thing, right? I think that more people would do stuff like that all the time. Canadians, Americans, whoever, everybody would, instead of watching Netflix or whatever, if they actually believed they could. But people don't think. How do so maybe we were naive. We were thinking like that kid who in Hurricane, who I was privileged to meet Ruben several times. Towards the end of his life, he moved to Canada, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't even see that connection in those days about how the Canadian, like, I didn't even see that, even though we were watching the movie and stuff. But I think more people, it's a matter of feeling empowered. Whether you're too dumb to know you can't make a difference, or feel that you can, because you've done it before in other realms. That's what I think. It all comes down to self-belief and the not like, hey, I can do this, but to think, well, why, I can do my little part. I can take a step. I can make a difference. If I do this, maybe somebody else can pick it up and do this. I never thought at 28 years old I was going to be able to free that guy from death row, but I kind of did. I kind of did think so. I thought that the world would free him. I thought if we made it known, if we did our little part, which was words, people would find out, and it didn't go quite that way. There's a lot of opposition. They don't want to be found out. They don't really want it unraveled. Is the truth once it start, But so there's a lot big. It was a bigger beast than we thought, right? We thought we just help them point it out, and then we were fighting a bigger battle than we even knew we were. So those things intimidate people, and you don't feel like you can make a difference, right? But same reason people don't start a business, or they dream about going to travel, but they never do it. It's because they ultimately something they don't see themselves doing it. Yeah. So it's easier to not do it. You know what I mean? Like it's not. It's just because It's not that I'm better. I was dumb enough or like hubris enough or whatever to be like, you know what, let's see what we can do here. And then you see that you can make a difference. And as you do those things, you're like, whoa, look what we just did. And that gives you the confidence and the whatever to keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you how being an activist is akin to capitalism, because I think that a lot of people think that they're opposing forces, and I think that they're marryable, right? That the two things go together really well. Doing good makes a lot of money when done right, kind of thing. And so you've been able to, in your career, pivot from activism into capitalism a bit. And that was the next thing I wanted to unpack with you, is that transition. You started it with belief in self. And I just want to emphasize that for people, right? You have to do the work on yourself so that you have belief in yourself, so that you have blind faith that what you are doing is going to make a difference in the world. And so I just wanted to emphasize that, and then have you
and once you do that, you do it, right? Because you're like, okay, I can do that. Why wouldn't you? I really truly believe that people are good. Like Anne Frank said, I still believe in the good of people, and it's true. Most people will help. If there's someone in front of them that's starving, they're going to give them a sandwich. Most people that are, they're gonna. So it's just that they don't feel like they have the power to make an impact. So we don't even try to make an impact. And that's the same as in our own personal lives and doing things that would benefit ourselves, as it is, why don't more people feed the starving children or help free the innocent guy from death row? So I always say that because it's hugely epic. You know what I mean? Like, I know you can't, like, how can you tell that story without, and people want to applaud you and be like, awesome, oh my God, you're so, then I want to go, no. But the whole point of it is not to be applauded. The point of it is for you guys to realize this dumbass girl, now I'm a brilliant, blah, 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 strategic publicist. You can see my list of, whatever behind me a mile long, right? But when I was 20s, I'm just a crazy girl with the red hair. I would have said to myself too, what can I do? I don't have any money. I don't have any, but it doesn't matter. I had the passion and I had this, and out of that, look, I built this, I never even meant to. Now this weird career has developed, which wow, but again, it took a long time for me to think of that too. That was part of the strategic, because it wasn't like I went from that, oh, look, now I've gotten this high profile, now I'm going to turn it into money. We were doing that for it was like a decade after we did TV. Then I was still doing all the sales, still doing all that. We were just completely focused on getting him out of death row. And then it wasn't until just a couple of years before he got out when we realized, yeah, it's happening. And I was like, wait a minute, one day, literally about to make another phone call for my crappy job. And I'm thinking, hold on a second. I wish I could remember what I was thinking the minute before that. I clearly remember that revelation where I'm like, wait. I think that's a publicist. I'm not doing this anymore. And then from that moment, I literally went and looked into how can I get freelance work as a publicist, because I have this history of doing that without getting paid. Right. So I wish I remember what I was thinking the moment before that.
You're probably thinking, I've got to make another call.
Yeah, but I've been thinking that for years. What was the,
It's the breath at the end. Nobody can see the breath on the audio, but if you're watching the YouTube, you can see the breath, right? It's all right. It's funny. I the revelation moment, I know for me being a healer, being in my industry, was I was dead. And then I woke up in a hospital and I sat up and I said, I think I need to be a healer, right? It was a pretty freaking clear revelation moment. But yeah. I have no idea what was happening in my head before that.
Right, that's what I really wish, because I mean, so clearly I remember that going, and from that moment, the way I remember it is I didn't make another call. I might have made one more call, but the way I remember it is I was like, oh, yeah, no. I literally started searching, and I found Elance. That's how I first started, which is Upwork now. And that's how I first started. I used to get my first clients on that until I just started transitioning to LinkedIn. But yeah, so from what I remember is I literally went, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And then I was like, I think they call that a publicist. Okay. Now I'm a publicist. And then pretty quickly I got a client, and one of them was, like I think I told you before, Angela Sadler Williamson, one of Rosa Parks' cousin,
Right.
who wrote the book, the movie My Life with Rosie for adults, which is on Amazon Prime. And this week was nominated, was like accepted for, or nominated, whatever it is, for an Emmy.
Nice.
And that was my first, one of my first projects. And that's when I was like, okay, I guess I'm in the game. Look at me.
So here's something you've been saying. I want to unpack that too. Is you thought of it and then you did it, right? You thought of it and then you started doing actions. You thought, I can do this, and then you started making actions towards it. A lot of people think, I could do something. I have this great idea. I wanted to do this. Oh man, I created this thing I'm seeing out now. I created that 10 years ago.
Yes,
why didn't I do it? Why didn't I do it? So all of those things, go through my mind when I hear you saying, well, I just did this. And then I started writing. And then I went on to Upwork or, Elance, and I put my ad out. And then these are all action steps that you're doing, right? So people I used to get really upset at the law of attraction because I felt like they missed this step, the action step. And so people were like, well, I made my vision board and nothing.
That's so true. I always say you can do all that, then act in accord.
Act in accord, exactly. So this is where the thing you want to do becomes alive, right? So
Here's how I put that too. You know how people say fake it till you make it? I hate that because I'm very genuine. I don't like fake it till you make it. That's the wrong message. But I get what they're trying to say with that. And so what I say with that is from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is don't dream it, be it. Have you ever heard anybody talk about Rocky Horror Picture Show in a business, podcast before? No. But seriously, it's just a line from a song. But I always love that. Don't dream it, be it. So it's the same as it's a saying. If you want to make it, you don't fake it till you make it. Be it. Start it. Do it. Take a step. Now you're it. You want to write a book? Don't just think about write a page. Oh, look at me writing. Now you write a second page. Hey, you know what I mean? Right. Just like me, when I took that step, I made that freelance or whatever Upwork page, and then I, put myself out there, and then I got a first client. And oh my God, I got that client, that one. Like I got Angela Sadler Williamson, and actually, a Kennedy person. I don't even talk about this because it sounds crazy, but one of my first clients on Upwork back then, which is not even in touch now, was like a member of the Kennedy family. Remember that story of the Kennedy brother or cousin or somebody that had murdered the girl in Connecticut in the 70s?
Oh yeah, that was
this about 10 years ago. There was something going on with the legal situation, and because of my history in the death penalty stuff, right? When I had my contract there, they saw that, and somebody was like, "Well, we're looking for somebody to write the words for a web page for Michael Skako." Mm-hmm. And so I wrote the word, and it was a Kennedy family member had hired me. I don't remember the name right now, but it was legit on Upwork. Some crazy people are on that Upwork, by the way. I've literally got Rosa Parks' cousin and a Kennedy hired me on that. And so that was just like a little short project at the time. Like it was like but I mean, so there I'm like, okay, hold on. So really you can do it. That was not easy. I was a freelancer. I didn't even have all these accolades. I was good at what I guess I did. I had the history of what I'd done for I had been on CNN. My media messaging had got us on CNN. So it wasn't just like I could point to successes, but still that's very quickly on to your point. I said I was going to do it. I went on there and did it. All of a sudden I'm working with Rosa Parks' cousin and a Kennedy.
Crazy, isn't it?
Do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to quote Nike, but just do it.
Yeah, well, just do it. I go back to the Risky Business, movie, and the line that Tom Cruise is famous for saying, which is, every now and then you just gotta say, what the fuck?
I forgot about that one. That's a good one. Yeah.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it. And it's funny because here's what the audience is not hearing, right? Is that the thing that's stopping us from just doing it? There is a thing that is an actual thing stopping us from doing stuff, right? Now, I call it trauma, and then the resulting behaviors and automatic patterns because of the trauma, fear, distrust, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, all those kinds of things, right? It sounds to me like you act beyond fear, right? In some level, even though you're experiencing it possibly. So how did you get to a place where you could act despite maybe the fears and the traumas and the things that were possibly coming your way? Because a lot of what people want to do these days is go up against the systems like I do, go up against the systems as they are. This is going to spark a lot of their fear barrier, right? From just doing it. So why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a perfect answer for that. That's a really good question. I think I'm trying to think as you ask that, where when I started being like that. But I think see, I've always been, it's funny, I'm thinking back to a conversation I had when I was 15 with my best friend Jennifer. And because I was gonna say I've always been super confident, but at the same time, I've always been like anybody, not confident. I was, the fat girl. So with all that, that's, I say that now, but I never would have even used those words even a couple of years ago, because I was so like, if I don't say anything, maybe nobody will notice. It was I don't know, like if I would come up in a TV show, I leave the room because somebody might look at me, you know what I mean? Like so that shows you I was hugely unconfident about that in my presence in a room and all that. And yet in spite of that, even at 15, I was like, whatever. So I remember a conversation with my friend about this kind of thing at 15, which teenagers are more, smarter than you think they are. This really seems resonant and smart to me even now, right?
Right.
I don't even remember who was Jennifer or me that said this, but when we were talking about this, in a conversation, and we were talking about how like we're insecure, because she was like me in that way. We're insecure. We're secure in our insecurities. So it's like, you know what, whatever. Like I don't care in some way. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't, because of that, thinking people are going to judge me, whatever. Anyway, same time I'm smart and strategic and whatever. And that, but the confidence, was it a confidence or a lack of confidence that let me say, oh, I don't care anyway. I'm just going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Was that super confident, or was it that I wasn't confident? So they figured that I wouldn't be accepted or wouldn't be like them, or I couldn't be the pretty blonde girl. I couldn't, anyway, so whatever. So this is what you get. And then I became super confident in that. And that's been everything. Cause like people who knew me back then, when I say, oh, I wasn't confident as a teenager, they're like, yeah. Or if I say I was shy as a teenager, they're like, you were never shy. I'm like, really? Oh, that's interesting. So it's like, I think I always just, whether it was natural to me at the time or whether it became natural, because now it's supernatural, going and even whatever, I don't care,
Right.
And that is a free. And, it's funny, I read recently at 50, like way after this is my personality, in Psychology Today, not long ago, or maybe it was the New Yorker, but it was something, and it was saying that there was a point, like it's almost like, that old, what do they used to call people? Not
Elderly.
neurotic. Like they would say they're not neurotic, eccentric,
Neurotic, eccentric. Okay.
right?
Well, they
And
only
so
said that about the wealthy people.
yes, I was just gonna say that when you're at a certain level, whether it was wealth in the old days or even now, of like now it could be of your socials or your that what social wealth or the credible or whatever, you're then all of a sudden what looks weird. Oh, like when when I'm 21 walking into an office with a crazy red hair, how does she think she's gonna get hired? Whatever, little girl, go. What looks weird then? When you got this credibility behind you and you're able to, even if they don't know that, at a certain point, they start to think, oh, gee, that person who carries themselves like that, with that confidence, with that, like my husband's got crazy long curly hair like a rock star, right? And then I got the bright red hair. We go places where people don't even know about, like, they don't know I'm a publicist, they don't know whatever. And they're looking at us and, ooh, we walk in the room. And it's funny because I guess but the interesting thing is we carry ourselves now, it's probably a combination of the crazy look, the red hair and the curly hair. But now that we're 50 and have all this stuff behind us, even if you don't know that, we carry ourselves with a confidence that you wouldn't maybe expect from the crazy red-haired girl or the guy with the curly hair, right? So that right there has, I think, because it happens all the time now. We're like, that's so weird. Like, they don't know what we do. They don't know about Hollywood. They don't know. We just literally walk somewhere and like some rubby be like, oh, who are you guys? What do you do? We're like, do we have that vibe now? Like, I don't understand. But I think that's what it is, because we look off. We don't look at the average 50-year-olds.
Right.
So clearly, and we're clearly not bums. So then clearly you're somebody. Because otherwise, why wouldn't you just have a suit and tie and look like, you know what I mean? So
Right.
there's a weird
Absolutely.
like backslash.
Yeah. So I think 60 something years old is the age of I don't give a shit.
I'm
And
51. I already don't care.
right. But I mean, in just in general, amongst the crowd, like they'll, I hear them talking, so to speak, and they're whispering, oh yeah, I could toot in public now. Oh yeah. Like, I mean, it's like the age where just, let it all, I could
Maybe you just
express how
figure
I
it out.
want.
Maybe it's just a confidence thing where you realize, no, you know what? All that was just stupid with me sitting there worrying about everybody. Maybe you finally realize what I tell people, which is stop being so stressed out when you walk in the room. You think that everybody in the room is thinking about little old you? Well, that's a lot of arrogance and confidence. They're like, I'm not arrogant. Well, sure you are. You just think that everybody in the room is thinking about you. You don't realize that everybody in the room is thinking about their own crap, their own worry, their own.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if there's some asshole and they're just thinking about tearing you down, then that's good to know. Then you don't want to deal with them anyway. That's thanks for letting me know about you what you like.
Right. So deconstructing the societal norms is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. So I didn't tell you any of this stuff on our pre-interview because I wanted you to go, all right. Okay. So deconstructing social norms, because here's the thing. There's this guy, he's in your industry way, way, way long before you were. He's called the father of spin, Dr. Bernays. He was the cousin to Freud, and he's the guy who created propaganda. Okay.
Is he the guy that was in his 90s? He died in his 90s.
Yeah, he created propaganda in general. He was the guy that
governments and all
Hitler
that
created Mein Kampf after. And like I said, his psychology was his cousin was Freud. And he basically said that people are sheep and there's a select few that know what the people need. And then the publicity and advertising industry was born to tell people what it was that they needed to direct them into a direction like sheep, right? So that was the father of your industry as publicist. There's a lot of manipulation of people's societal norms. So I want to know how we can manipulate people's societal norms so that they are fearless in the face of fear, so that they act beyond their belief maybe in themselves, like you did. So I just wanted to surprise you with a little.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I always love the kind of PR I do needs PR. Because it's true. When you say PR, even me, when you say public relations, like that's why I call when I rebranded and incorporated, my company was called Lamourie PR and Media. She was originally Lamourie PR and Marketing when I started, because I came from marketing and I was like, oh, what if I don't get enough PR content? But I never even did any marketing. So when I was incorporating, I changed to Lamourie Media, because I was like, well, we're never in public relations. It's and also because we're a media content creation company and we're going to be doing more of that. But also public relations, I think, has a bad spin, because when you think about it, you think about like spin doctors. The guys, excuse me, oh my goodness, the guys that stand up in front of yeah, no, I'm good. The guys that stand up in front, for politicians or whatever, or for a company that's done something wrong, or they, had a big bad media thing and now they got it.
Or, the president's press secretaries, or,
right, the language, or, a media, or like a maybe non-nefarious example. Oh my God, excuse me, would be like a public health campaign, where they need to get a bunch of information out to everyone, where that is the situation where you're talking about. They specifically want people to act in a certain way. So they're putting out the news, what we see with COVID is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I didn't say anything about COVID at all.
No, and I don't like to go into that either, because I'm not even, I don't have a strong opinion about it, because I like to have opinions about things when I know a lot.
Yeah, and I like having my YouTube channel.
And also, no, yeah, and I'm not even going either direction on it because me personally, I haven't. Because as again, in general about the world, I like to know a lot of things before I start spouting off. I like to really be confident. And when it comes to all that, I am not confident. I don't know anything on either side. So, but I'm just strictly as an example of, so not with being true, not none of that. Just like, or let's make up let's not call it COVID. Let's say there's a public health B, a public health emergency C. This is gonna happen if people do that. So they want to get in a massive information. So something like that, yeah. But what I reinvented, I never went to PR school. I didn't even meet a publicist till recently. I never read a book on PR. I started messaging to get the word out about someone. So to me, what I have done in my career, what I call PR, in the services that I provide for my clients. I don't, it's funny because an LA client said to me they fired their Hollywood publicist for me, and a month after working together, they're like, "You do things that no other publicist does." And I'm not saying that to say I'm better, it's because I invented this in my head. You know what I mean? To me,
Right.
I didn't go to school and learn what the perimeters of what a publicist does for their client is. To me, it's your public image. It's all of it. It's what I would do for myself. I want to get you in award shows. I want to get you media. I want to just get your message out there, right? So I call what I do elevating and celebrating. Some good PR spin, eh? But actually, that literally came out of me in a podcast. We were having a conversation like this. The podcaster was like, I wanted you to know I normally wouldn't have a publicist on because my show is all about the jet, but I really like your vibe and I listened to your show. So he was saying the same thing. And I was like, but really, it's more about elevating. And I was like, that's what I do. And it just popped out. And I was like, I love that. But that's true. That's what I find people who are already doing amazing things, whether they're creatives, whether they're entrepreneurs, whether they may not even realize how amazing the things they're doing are. And I'm like, why aren't you getting quoted about that? Why aren't you? So literally my job is what I do is I find people, writers who deserve to be heard and find ways to get them heard. People that aren't looking at it, and I find ways to break that barrier for them so that we can get into the media. I surprised you. I used to be a punk, Ari, but Jello Biafra from Dead Kennedys, punk days. Oh my God, Kennedys came up twice in this conversation. What's my bad?
And they're all dead. The dead Kennedys, the dead Kennedys.
Right. Jello Biafra said, if you don't like the media, you don't hate the media, become the media in the 80s, way before all this. And I was like, yeah, so I am the media. We are all the media. In some ways, that's a problem these days because, some people are just spouting off and whatever. That's but in terms of mainstream media, as what I find is so that guy, I stay away from that stuff specifically because I don't like to work. When I used to be a passionate politico, because I was an activist. I thought, I was passionate about some of the people that I thought were going to change things. I would use my skills, for politics. Those were the days before I was getting paid for stuff. Now I really don't want to, and I won't say never because maybe somebody will follow they'll convince me that they're God's greatest gift to, activists, and they really do mean it. But I like to stay away from politics, not because the people are bad, because the system is so corrupt. Like I said, even the best person going into that shitstorm, they're not going to be able to do what they want to do. They're not going to be able to. So I don't want to sully my professional reputation because I'm an activist and I came from this, you know what I mean? I didn't come from this just like I want to always, I want that activist that I was in my 20s to always be proud of this corporate chick in my 50s. Like you said at the beginning, that different, I even recently, I came from that mindset. I still have to convince myself sometimes that, yeah, oh yeah, isn't that funny how the people, we have, doesn't mean you're evil. Hey, look at that. Because it's true, like the corporate is always like, Mr. Burns on The Simpsons or whatever. Like it's always, so as an activist, you're thinking anybody that's in business, clearly they're just money oriented. They don't care about all this stuff. It's almost been a revelation. It continues to be a revelation as I am, higher and higher in business, and my circles are wider and wider. And more people with money are in my circle, and more big people with bigger money and all that. And then I tell my story, or podcasters who are huge, corporate business guys, and they're like almost crying here, and I'm like, wow, these people actually do care, huh? But they weren't listening before. How come they listen? So now I'm at a place. So I learned so much doing this, like from what stuff you said to the perceptions that were wrong about, what they thought was wrong about activists, what I thought was wrong about people. So really, we are all really confused about each other and our motivations, whether it comes to like the right and the left and the, people that I think are bad because I'm a hardcore anti-race that I would not have on my table and all that. Even then, I have to remind myself, people are people, and they're not always working on the same motivation that we think they're working on. Sometimes it's like you said, fear or misunderstanding or whatever. And if you can
Programming.
break those things down, so in that sense, it is important to break things. So in terms of PR, like truth, it's communication and people management for sure. It's contacts, communication, and people management for sure. But I don't look at it as a nefarious way. I'm not trying to find ways to convince people of things that aren't true. I do try to find ways to convince,
No,
to use my words so people can hear what I'm saying. Different audiences can understand what I'm saying and hear me without their own barriers going up before they can even hear me.
right. No, I guess what I was getting at was not sullying you or your profession. What I was saying is,
I got it totally.
yeah, what I was saying is how do we get the profession in general? Because a lot of people, obviously, they don't trust the media these days. And so how do we get the profession in general to understand that truth messaging is as powerful, if not more powerful, than fake media and false messaging? And how do we get the people to understand what the differences are when we clearly have a complete lack of cognitive dissonance right now, or critical thinking and the ability to understand information? So, how do we bring people back to a place where they can really truly know what's real so that they can act on it, so that they can feel like they can do something, so that they have the faith and the confidence and all those things that we've been talking about beforehand, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying,
that's a really hard part, especially how do people break it all down.
Yeah, I'm weaving it all together. How do we bridge those gaps? These are the conversations I at least want to have in general and have you have with all of your media people, right? How do we do that as a community of media people so that we can really change the industry together?
How do people think? I mean, number one, honestly, that cognitive dissonance is so true. It's hard. It may be hard for people to do, but you have to really understand, like, no matter when you hear information, who is giving me this? Like, where is this information coming from? Who is giving me this information, and why do they want me to believe it? Ask yourself that. Who benefits from me believing this? And like, honestly, I ask myself that when I watch everything, like, even if because something might sound good, if it fits your mindset, if it fits your belief system, it fits your whatever, then you're going to want to believe it. Whatever you hear, whatever information, like, that's nasty about that size, whatever, but you always question everything. I swear a button as a little punk rocker that said question authority, and I still, say that. Question everything. Question all the information. Question the information I give you. Do it, because you should be questioning all information. Who benefits from this? Well, Tracy's clients benefit from me hearing about them, but that's not nefarious or whatever. But ask yourself, is there, who benefits from this, and is there another side to it? Always question your own thinking, edit your own thinking, make sure, read other stuff. That's the number one way. I read everything. I read the right wing. I'm a lefty, obviously, even though I always say a bird can't. In terms of most of the things, if you were lining them up, I would agree more, but not always. I'm not a radical on anything.
Right.
A bird can't fly with only one wing. You ever see a bird try to fly? So, like, really, I'm not a lefty or righty. I'm an ideas girl. I'm tired of all this, like, what side are you on? I'm about ideas. I don't know. Let's talk about the specific thing we're talking about.
Exactly.
And I'll hear both ideas that maybe will.
This is part of why I like having you on, because I so agree. This is what I talk about so often, is critically think each individual issue, each individual thing in your life, in your business, in your politics, in your community. It's like, ask good questions
of yourself. Hey, why do I believe that? Why is it because all my friends say that? Oh, well, you know what? Look, so honestly, like, I literally read everything that's Sports Illustrated. I read all the mainstream stuff, right? and I watch whatever. And then I read, if I can get my hands on some crazy left-wing stuff, I'll read it. Like, I mean, radical, crazy right-wing stuff, I'll read it. And I'm shaking my head at both going, oh my God, and you know what I'm saying? So like, I understand that I'm reading what people are saying. I'm hearing not just the argument of people that think my way, but all of them. And I'm like, yeah, that's, you know what I'm saying? So that way, I'm not because I think I'm going to even be convinced about stuff, but just if you don't understand the way people are thinking, and this isn't just so that I can do the messaging,
Right.
this is so that this is from the activist me, because PR me developed out of activist me, and we were joking, me and my husband Dave were talking the other day, go, man, we were like, we were thinking back in our 20s, we started a campaign because we were at the place we worked at, we wanted to bring in a union. We didn't know any unions. We weren't radicalized from that. We just didn't like the way we were being treated at work. One girl said, "Hey, I think you can go to any union." We were like, "Really? Let's look that up." And we looked it up. We made a couple of calls, and then all of a sudden, we were in the Globe and Mail, Canada's biggest, financial paper, at before the CCADP, before the death penalty. I forget this stuff. At 25, 26 years old, me and my husband and one girl, we unionized the first call center in Canada. And that, again, we were not like big union activists. We were just doing whatever, So I've always a matter of like, but oh yeah, why I started bringing that up. We were always really good. So we were not like we weren't publicists. But at 25 years old, the company was trying to silence the talk about unions. So they came and bought everybody pizza one day. So we wrote a marketing, but I look back on now, a really good PR piece. It said, well, the union will give you more than just pizza. And then it had a whole big breakdown. We went with a 99% vote, the union, which I wasn't even a part of, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd never seen a vote like that. Because we did the work. We called all of our fellow workers. We said, do you have any questions? Call us. We put the time in. We care. You know what I mean? But it was really good. When I look back on it, after 20 years of doing this, I couldn't have done a better campaign now than I did as a dumbass 24-year-old activist, because it was the same thing. Right. It was just messaging, seeing what the situation was, really believing in it, right? And say, we're going to tell people, and we're going to tell people in a way they can hear it. We're going to, and that's what it all is. So Buddy with his 90, the only thing I think the guy that you're talking about, the only thing I admire about him is funny. I read about him in New Yorker and it was hilarious. They said he was in his 90s. I believe it's the same guy because they said he was the father of PR, and they mentioned that he worked for like, countries, right? And they said he was in his 90s. He still went to work in his office in New York City, like literally every day, and they were telling this like it was some crazy thing, right? And I was reading it going, yeah, he's a publicist thing. So that was the only thing where I felt like a resonance there. I was like, yeah, I'll be doing this at 108. That's what we do, but other than that, yeah. So I don't agree. I don't think that's like, I don't believe in spin. I certainly don't. I did not know that thing on Mein Kampf. That's really informative and interesting, because yeah, there is definitely a dark side, which is called, and that used to be called dark PR. And I'm sure a lot of people actively do that. And that's what they do in politics and everything, where all they're trying to do is dig, that whole class is dig up the others,
right,
leaking and digging all that stuff up. And I don't want any part of that.
Right. And that's literally, I guess, what is going on right now, at least in the US. I don't know about how the news looks in other countries at this moment. I know how it looked like in 2004 during the elections when I was in Greece. I could see the news and the differences between what's being aired on US TV versus Greek TV at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I know in the US, this massive thing about fake news, and we just don't really know what is true and what's not true anymore. And all the resources to, you Google something and you get a completely different set of answers than you do if you Yahoo something or if you Bing something. And it's like, okay, who's pushing which agenda? And is there any kind of, independent search that doesn't have the preconceived algorithm to send you to where they want to send you?
That's interesting too, because even the more when you search, Google knows your search history too, right? Like Facebook, they give you, so we're getting in this weirder, like the circle where who knows how it's getting, like it's getting worse and worse, and in 5 years probably gonna be even worse, because where we're hearing only are like those echo chambers, right? And then there's those new social media platforms, people who've been kicked off the Twitter and Facebook and whatever, and they're super echo chambers where like it's only that. So on, it's like it's all that's in it, all of a sudden, if everyone around you is talking about whatever, in a certain way, that starts to seem like your reality. That's how cults work. That's how governments work when you're in a government, not even meaning to, but you're in a government. Like that's why I call everything a cult, because I understand the way a mind works. I call the political parties that I used to be in a cult. The NDP, which is the lefty party. And I left them because I was like, you know what, even they're supposed to be the one of social, and I'm not dissing them because they're all like this. They're
Right.
supposed to be the one of social justice, blah, 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 in line with all the people that are like me, who care about this, that, and the other. But when it comes down to it, it is an entity and a party, and it's working inside. And part of what it does is to exist itself. Where we're activists, we're always on those issues, looking for a partner that's going to help. Well, those political parties aren't ever, because they can't be. They're all, once you get in there, there's all these different other things going on. And as people, whatever's around us sounds good. You relate to the people around you. You start to so then those other people, because, oh, those people are crazy. They don't, meanwhile, you're not realizing, you just seeing your little part of the elephant, like those activists are seeing their part of the elephant, or the finance people are seeing their part, thinking everyone else is crazy, but there's truth in all of it, maybe.
Right.
But in terms of the media, oh God, I don't even know, just so much, this fake news thing is, like, this the expression fake news is just so annoying, because I mean, like, everything, anybody can call anything that now.
Exactly.
But at the same time, it's true. Like, that did address originally the propaganda side of news. So yeah, it's it's a shit show now. Let me tell
It
you.
is. It's really fun.
The only way to put it.
It's really entertaining, but not if you actually want to know something about what actually is happening in the world. And I think that was the point, is when the deregulation happened, and they started making news for profit. It used to have to be it had to be not-for-profit division of a corporation to deliver the news. And then they deregulated it, and they allowed for a 24-hour news cycle that had advertising. And all of a sudden, we stopped getting the news. At least as far as Walter Cronkite, I think, delivered.
Yeah, that trusted. That's true. And there used to be a clear, like, a delineation, like 100% between the editorial and advertorial, where like an editor would shoot themselves in the head before they let any editorial or advertorial content come, like 100%. But now that's actually changed. Even to, like, I'm still shocked that even in newspapers, even where, like, and to their great regret, like, I've talked to business press, for example, where they're like, oh my God, Trace, like the editors of Financial Post and stuff, where they're like, that's a great story. I myself have literally 18 stories. I'm the editor of the Financial Press. I have 18 business stories I want to put. But my business press has been, like, cut from like 6 pages, 10 pages to 3 to 2.5 pages, one told me, with 1.5 of the editorial content going to people who placed ads. And I was like, oh my God. And that's in a newspaper. Oh my God. And he was like, just tell me this truth, right? And I was like, geez, because you see some of that, like, I guess the reality of the newsroom now, like the economic, it's crazy. But that's the kind of thing that ruins, like, that, you used to be like, you come to me for like earned media. There is no, like, I don't do pay to play. I don't put, when you pay me, you don't, I don't come to you later and say, pay to get into this, because that's advertising, right? I find opportunities where you are a respected source and you quote it as an expert source. And that's why it's valuable, because it's not advertising, because you can't buy your way into that. It's me presenting you, that's why it's valuable. If they keep doing this, it's going to be, like, as seen on TV, used to have cachet to people, when it was like a purchased ad, until people figured out, oh, wait, that's just an ad, and now it still has the cachet, like if you're on the news, CTV or whatever, because you're not supposed to be able to buy your way. But now there's starting to be that, like, and that style is good thing at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's, I like to play with you in some of those mind things. You said, I know the mind, I know the consciousness. So here's where I like to go, right? I want to create a new tomorrow. I want to activate people's visions for a better world. Activate is an active thing that you have to actually actively do. And in my opinion, that is activism, because you're doing the thing that you're passionate about that is going to move people forward. So that's an activism thing. So creating an active movement, creating people who are actively doing and collaborating with others who are like-minded. How do you move the mountain? How do you get people to come along with you? How do you get people who want to be the leader to step up to be that leader so that they can then bring the people in?
I think it's really showing people that you can do it. Like that's what I think people always tell me, that I've inspired them and all that. And I think it's just they look at me, they're like, oh, like she, even my daughter, when we met her at 15, she's adopted, and she was already awesome, activist minded, all kinds of, but like when she came into our family and saw all the newspaper articles on the thing about us with the death penalty, and all these like newspapers all over America, from the bottom of from Canada in our basement. There we have the cover of the Houston Chronicle that and she said to me years later, not then, because she started doing her own activist stuff, not around the death penalty, obviously, or other stuff. She, fights with a lot of Aboriginal rights stuff. Early on, it was animals. Now it's, First Nations and stuff. And but I remember she literally said, like, I thought I already was always kind of activist minded, but I looked at all this literally and thought, well, if you guys can do that, it just made it real, like, oh wow, because it's true, like, like seriously, what? We elevated ourselves so much, without, and it wasn't about us. We were never trying, it was about getting the message passionately out, but somebody had to be speaking the message, and all of a sudden we're there, people look, so like, we never should have been able to do that stuff, but we just didn't think, we thought we should be able to. So we did, And so she was inspired by that. So I think people see that it's not that hard. It is hard, but it's not. It's like anything. It's not, nothing is hard. Nothing, maybe brain surgery. I've never done that. That's probably hard. But I mean, other than that, like most things in life are not hard. If a human can do it, you can do it. If a person can do it, if you can conceive of it, if you can, and if you take that first step, again, you're a lot closer. Like a lot of these things, when we say them, people think, oh yeah, I've heard that a million times before. But it's true. Just do it. If you take a step, now you're not where you were before. You're one step closer. And you realized you did that. And then maybe if you take one more step, you're going to get a serotonin boost, a little bit of gold, whatever. And you're like, whoa, yeah, man, so I'm lucky, and like, I don't know what it was that pushed me on path, but like, I just didn't have fear. And so I, like you said, the fear, and I did stuff. And every time I did stuff, I'd get, back in those days, it wasn't a money reward at all. Like now it's, money. Back then we weren't thinking about that. But I mean, the reward, and it wasn't even about ego, it wasn't about getting the article. It was about, we were like literally in it to accomplish that thing. Oh my God, we're in that article. Not like, oh great, Tracy's in that article. It's like, how many people read that? How many people are going to hear that? I'm going to hear about Jimmy. It was really about that. And when you're actually doing that, that's when you get heard, when you're doing something.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much for all of that. Is there anything else that you feel like you just need to give to the audience that you're like aching to share with them?
Well, I usually end on that, and not like on a positive note for people who aren't feeling so positive, because I think we always talk about all these accomplishments and blah, blah, blah. And, like looking at people on fancy vacations on the internet, it can make people feel pretty bad about themselves. But I, again, want you to realize, well, everyone to realize, so there's Jimmy who, spent 25 years on death row. He used to always say, never, never give up, which, for real, that's how he got through it. And then even now when he's out and we, everyone has trauma whenever he's talking about stuff and he's having a bad day, I'll be like, yeah, you know what? We didn't get this far to only get this far, which I just found on Facebook. I saw that on Facebook once. And for him, I'm like, because it's Grammys on the way. You already did the hard stuff. You got those doors open that no one would have thought you could do. We didn't get that far to not, get the rest of your dreams. This is the easy part for you. Like to get the Grammy compared to what we've done already is easy. That's possible. That wasn't. We did that, so that's but even more importantly, for people who like maybe don't, so for people who are feeling good about themselves, you didn't get this far to only get this far, there's more to go. But really more importantly, for people who don't feel good about themselves, who are like, who feel like they're a loser, who feel like they're not winning, who feel like they just don't feel good, they want to jump off a bridge, they feel like everybody's doing good with themselves, there's no hope. You didn't get this far to only get this far. You're absolutely a winner if you're listening to this, because this is a hard, shitty world sometimes. It's a great world. I love it. But it can be shitty. It can be hard for people, especially if you don't know how to get out of that negative feeling. And everybody has people that are treating them badly. had struggles. But literally, if you got here, you got through all those struggles. You beat all those people who wanted to bring you down, and you won. So you're still here, and there's only tomorrow, to do more. So you have to literally realize you didn't get through all that. You didn't deal with all those idiots. You didn't deal with all that to be feeling this way today. You got to applaud yourself for where you got and keep on going. So that's, I think, super important.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I thought of earlier in the conversation when you were talking about celebration. And I think that people forget to celebrate their wins. They're definitely ready to experience their failures, emotionally, but celebrating their wins and being grateful for that win each time it comes, even if it's tiny, tiny, tiny steps, is an amazing thing for people to do to keep moving them forward and feeling good about it, even in those moments of hardship, right? And struggle. I mean, you went through a lot of years of hardship and struggle on that path to get that person. And I'm sure that part of what you were thinking is nothing that I'm experiencing is as much as what he's experiencing, being in that space. And so using that as part of cross motivation.
Exactly.
And I tell people, you're not done until you're dead. You can't fall off a wagon. There is no wagon. If you're not dead, you're not done.
I like it.
You can literally at any moment in time choose to do something different, to move, to fly away, to go on a vacation, to rest and breathe and not pick up your phone, to do any of these things. You are more than capable of because you're a human being. And so I really appreciate you being on and sharing your story, your wisdom, all of the things that got you to a place. And I hope that the audience listening really gets that they can do something to activate their vision for a better world and create a new tomorrow today. And it doesn't take a whole lot. It's just one step at a time. So thank you so much for being here. And this has been another episode of Create a New Tomorrow. I'm your host, Ari Gronich. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I appreciate all you do to create a new tomorrow for yourself and those around you. If you'd like to take this information further and are interested in joining a community of like-minded people who are all passionate about activating their vision for a better world, go to the website createanewtomorrow.com and find out how you can be part of making a bigger difference. I have a gift for you just for checking it out and look forward to seeing you take the leap and joining our private paid mastermind community. Until then, see you on the next episode.